Welcome to the HR Data Labs podcast, now part of the Work Defined Podcast Network. Join us as we explore the vital role of compensation, strategy, data, and people analytics in navigating today's complex business world. With the resources of Work Defined, we're bringing you deeper insights and actionable ideas from top HR experts. Now, here are your hosts, David Turetsky and Dwight Brown. Hello and welcome to the HR Data Labs podcast. I am your co-host, David Turetsky, alongside my co-host, best friend, partner in crime from Salary.com, Dwight Brown. Dwight Brown, how are you?
David Turetsky, I'm good. It's a Friday. Hard to get any better than that.
It's 8 a.m. your time.
It's 8 a.m. my time. Yeah. At least it's not 6 a.m.
Exactly. Phoenix does not believe in changing the clocks. They have voted against it. So,
yes.
But on that basis, though, we have people from all over the world today joining this podcast. We have Ranya Nehmeh, who's in Vienna.
Hello.
And we all wish we were with her right now. I know. Ranya, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. And we also have Peter Cappelli coming to us from, I think you're in the city of brotherly love, right?
Well, I'm on the Chesapeake Bay, but I'm supposed to be in Philadelphia, so let's not tell anyone. No one listens to this
okay.
today.
I'm sorry.
You're okay? Okay.
Which is fascinating given the conversation we're going to have today, which we're going to go into in a minute. But first, Ranya, why don't you start us off and tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Sure. Well, so as you said, my name is Ranya, and I have over 20 years of experience in different international organizations, among them the OPIC Fund in Vienna and the European Central Bank in Frankfurt, always in the HR space, so talent management, leadership, different areas, very much as an HR generalist, actually, over the last years.
Cool.
And I teach at a university as well in Vienna, and mainly in the area of leadership and the new world of work. And I was lucky enough to co-author this book with Peter in praise of the office, which I'm sure we'll talk about now.
Oh, we are going to talk about it. Mr. Cappelli, can you tell us a little bit about yourself for those people who don't know Peter Cappelli, and talk a little bit about the book?
So I've been working on this stuff for longer than Ranya. So I've been a professor at the Wharton School for 40 years now, and started a little before that. And Ranya's heard me say this before, but I told that to my undergraduate class this year that I'd been here 40 years, and they just started clapping like, what an achievement.
Some of their parents aren't even 40 years old.
Well, yeah, right. I know that's true. Like I was remarkable. I was standing, with the key thing for them, So I've been working on this, workplace issues for a long time. I think I'd written a short book at the beginning of the pandemic because we were getting so many questions about, what do we know about this? And the answer at the time seemed to be almost nothing when we sent everybody home from their offices. But it turned out that actually people had been studying this since the 70s in more limited ways. And so the first book was really just about, what do we know at that point about remote work? There's you particularly being out of your office when your colleagues are there, which was most typical story. None of it was particularly encouraging, frankly. It was nice for the person who decided, let's say, to move to Aspen. But for their work, it wasn't good. Nothing was better. Almost everything was worse. Then my publisher wanted to update it. And Ranya and I had, before this, worked on a little book chapter about remote work colleagues had asked me to do, and she provided kind of the European perspective on this. And so then my publisher wanted to update this book, and it's, there's so much that's happened since, the whole pandemic experience. We didn't know that much about then. So we really needed a different book. And so poof, we did it remarkably quickly. We started it last fall, a year ago, right? Just a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And they got it out in, less than a year. We had a Harvard Business Review article about it in June, July, which got a fair amount of attention. It was basically a lot of the story of the book. And we have actually this week a piece we wrote in the Wall Street Journal about it. So we are getting word out. I mean, I must say sometimes it's better to be lucky than clever. And, we just seemed, when the book was just starting to come out, there was all this interest from the big corporations in trying to bring people back to the office. So it became, a timely news story. And, that's good for us, but it's really lucky. We didn't really know that.
If I can just add to that also, when we started to write the book last fall, we were wondering, well, is this still going to be topical though in 1 year's time? And it turned out it was even more topical than it was last year.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, we're going to get into that in much more detail, but we want to know more about both of you. So we're going to ask, what's one fun thing that no one knows about Ranya?
Okay, I guess I will I will respond to that and say probably that I was a basketball player for many, many years. Wow. And my biggest dream would have been to be, to actually like be in the female NBA or something. This was like my, but it never happened. And honestly, yes. And what I learned from being playing basketball is actually much more than anything that you can learn like about teams. So any training that I've ever done about teams has never been as good as when you are playing a team sport, honestly.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Totally agree. Mr. Cappelli, how about you?
Well, maybe just to add that on Ranya, and Ranya's not super tall.
No, no, I'm not.
So that's what,
I'm not short either, though. So please.
There you go. Right, she's not short.
Kind of in between.
But not like you would think WNBA player. You would say that. So, yeah, it's an achievement. I like yard work, and she does know that. That mainly, what I like to do is go out and clean, and not even like it's not like I'm doing Japanese kind of gardening, move stuff. I have a tractor. I have lots of power equipment, chainsaws, cut this down, move this over here. And the reason, is that no one, unlike academic work, there's no referees that come along afterwards and said, you should have cut this other tree,
Unless you have an HOA. Yeah.
That's why you like it, because you're your own boss there. You can do whatever you want.
You're right.
Exactly.
Your own boss. Right. So I know more funny Ranya stories. I don't know if she knows anything to me. But
No. It's about you only.
So I won't say what Ranya's mother... I won't say that Ranya's mother gave her a T-shirt with the initial LMB on it.
You will never guess. So I'm just going to go ahead and say it because Little Miss Bossy.
I think that's great. I love that.
That is great. It definitely gives us insight into who Ranya is.
Well, also her mother. I think how cool that is that they both think it's funny. I think that's the best part.
Yes, that's great. That is great.
The best part. Yeah.
Wow, those are two new ones for us, Dwight.
Those are two new ones for us.
That's great.
Yeah.
Little Miss Bossy.
So we're going to put those in the archives as kind of the best ever. But okay, good. And by the way, that's after 253 episodes. So that's a lot. Okay. We've had a lot of that. So let's dive into our topic now, because this is one that we've had lots of debates on this podcast. Plus, we've been hearing about it in the news a lot, which is the complexities about returning to work, not just returning to work, but returning to the office.
Hey, this is William Tincup, and you should know about the You Should Know podcast. It's a topical, fun podcast with Ryan, myself, and a guest, or guests, plural sometimes, and we tackle the most timely topics of the day. Give it a look, give it a listen, and subscribe. Thanks.
So let's dive in. Whoever wants to answer first, what's the problem that we're in today with RTO and the information that we've been getting on the web and social media, as well as the news articles about, things like Jamie Dimon saying, you guys got to come back. What's the situation? Where are we today?
How about a two-parter? So let me answer kind of the descriptive thing, and then maybe, Ron, you can go a little deeper as to what the particular problem is. I think the situation is just kind of messy, and the information is kind of messy. So, for example, if you look at data from the U.S. Census, the peak year probably for remote work after the pandemic, which was 2022, 73% of American employers had no remote or hybrid workers. You would never know that, right, from listening to the press stories. And, it's also true, the reality that most employers are pretty small, right?
Yeah.
So, but the idea that everybody is doing remote or hybrid's not true. It's largely a big city, big employer phenomena, right? It is more true in the US and the UK, Canada to some extent, maybe even a little more. But it's an Anglo-American thing much more than the rest of the world. Ranya can say a little bit about that. And of course, what it means to work remote is kind of, what actually does that mean? We have the idea of permanent remote. You never come to an office. We don't have an office. That's extremely rare. And our sense of it is it's mainly small organizations that began that way, mainly tech companies. And the thing about complete remote work, which doesn't get much attention, it's really, really hard to do. And the companies that do it, the big one, the well-known ones like GitHub, they've got tons of rules for you to follow. It's not like you're just working in the office, but you're just going to go home. You got all these additional steps, transparency, things to document, ways in which you have to deal with each other. It's just full of rules. So it's not like you're on your own, just la-di-da, right? So I think the big issue, the issue at the moment, which maybe Ranya can pick this one up from here and I'll stop talking, is that we're in, not only is there enormous heterogeneity, a lot of variety as to what employers are doing, there's change in what individual employers are doing too, right? And some of it is just telling people are coming back to the office, but how often is the thing we're not talking very much about, So you say, most every big company has something they would call hybrid. Hybrid just means it's not all in the office and it's not all at home.
Right.
The in-between.
It could be one day, it could be 3 days.
Could be,
we don't know.
And the in-between is really the story. And it's not just what their policy is, it's what do they actually do. And that is wildly different, right? So that's the messiness of just the descriptive story. That's the messiness.
I think maybe just to add to that as well, I would say, why we are where we are right now is also because I think employers have not been very transparent as to when people should come back to the office or if and why. So, again, during the pandemic, it was very crisis driven. So, we were all in this together. There was that feeling, right? And then after that, it was like, okay, we'll probably come back in the summer of, 2020, then in the winter, then the next year. And so I think because it dragged on for so many years, it got to a point where there was no, employees were like, okay, well, this is how it's going to be, and employers did not really fix something. And that's why now we get to a point where ever since last year, when, big corporations have mandated people to come back, there's been so much also employee resistance. And also the way they've done it is a bit, is probably not the best way, because they really, it's pretty much, they've done it from one day to the next, everybody back to the office, but they haven't really explained why do you have to come back to the office? What are the tasks that you're going to do in the office that you cannot do as well from home? And
I think one of the challenges that we faced, Ranya, is that when I was working close to, or relatively close, I was an hour and 15 minutes away from my office in Waltham, I would come into the office and not interact with anybody, just do Zooms or do things like this on the phone. And so I actually dealt with a lot of noise and traffic and other things just to get into an office where I felt like I was less productive because I wasn't interacting with anybody. And it was just And by the way, I'm not saying there was anything wrong with the corporate mandate of coming back to the office. I think it was nice to see my colleagues, and it was great to hang out with them and spend time with them. But I didn't, because I was so busy doing things at my desk.
Right.
Because that's the way my job had been re-engineered, is to sit at your desk and do what you do. And that's what I do at home. So
Right.
And that's exactly what we are saying is, if you really want people to come back to the office, you have to do it also with intentionality.
Right.
You can't just say everybody just come in, and then you find, as I have also found myself in an office alone, coming in to sit on a Zoom call all day, and sometimes even my colleagues are in the rooms next door, but everybody's still sitting in their office Zooming instead of doing. So you really have to do it with intention, otherwise it does not make it worth the commute, and please don't understand then why. That's why you get all this resentment.
Well, it was also the heavy-handed communications, like Jamie Dimon saying, "You're going to come back to the office or else," or Amazon or Facebook. So,
well, and companies have had to, because even in the office, things were starting to be configured around people being out, and so companies have to literally reconfigure their offices again to make it more friendly for one-to-one, and especially understanding that you're going to be doing more Zoom meetings, so you've got to have more private, quiet spaces and things that weren't quite as much of a factor previously.
Yeah, and just to follow Dwight's point, this is also something not particularly well known, unless you're in one of these offices, is that employers shrank their office footprint
Right.
starting at the beginning of the pandemic. So, your office is gone. So when they say come back to your office, you don't have an office anymore. What you have, partly because we don't have enough space for everybody to be there. So this is the bizarre thing. We want you to all come back. But if you actually all did come back, we couldn't fit you in the office.
Right.
And then in order to accommodate even coming in 2 days a week or so, we have hoteling, which was an experiment run by Silicon Valley in the dot-com era, when they literally didn't have enough space because Silicon Valley was booming. They couldn't buy the space. They wanted to, but they couldn't get it. So it was like renting a hotel room, which is where hoteling came from. People hate that. You don't have your own space. You never know where you're going to sit. The idea of being in the office, as David is saying, you want to be with your peers and your friends that you know because you're near them. You could be in a different building with hoteling. Right. And then we got rid of even cubicles. We moved to open tables, open office plans, which people hate as well. So guess what? We want you to come back to the office, but you don't have the office anymore. And you've just got a desk, and you don't know actually where the desk is going to be or who's going to be sitting there. What's the problem? Just come on back. But just one more point on, David, what you were saying before about what the real problem is now. So our Harvard Business Review article, you don't pick your own titles for that, but their title was "Hybrid is Still Not Working." And actually, we tried to change it to "Hybrid is Still Not Working Well," and they cut the "well" off. So it sounds more provocative than
they want to sell papers.
But it was right. I mean, the biggest problem is this attendance problem. And, the surveys of employers all indicate that they have not been getting their employees in on anchor days, right? So we have this hybrid, but you come in and nobody is there. So some of the book is based on a study I had done with Jasmine Wu, where we did some focus groups in a big corporation. And they had anchor days. And, our sense was maybe 5% of the employees were there. And looking at other surveys, that wasn't unusual. So, you got hybrid, but in fact, what you've got looks more like permanently remote because nobody comes in.
Enjoying the conversation? Don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss an episode packed with insights and strategies. Now, let's dive back in. So let me ask a stupid question, though. Work's getting done. Productivity's happening. We're not, our challenges aren't because of hybrid work in the workplace. It's not because of that. There are a lot of other factors that are going on that have caused decreases in output or decreases in productivity, none the least of which is our political situation right now. So is hybrid the problem? Is remote work the problem, or is it just a symptom or another challenge that is creating a cause for productivity issues?
Well, I mean, no one is claiming that hybrid work, I don't believe, is causing the problems in the U.S. economy. It's tariff policy and credit issues and all kinds of other things, right? And is the work getting done? That's an interesting phrase, because in the focus groups, that's what people would say is the work is getting done. When they said that, though, what they meant was their own KPIs were getting done, but that was it.
Yep.
So anything that was not in their KPI, they were struggling to get done. That was done on purpose during the pandemic because employers understood people are going to be remote. What do you have to do? Pin down what it is you want them to do. And that's what they're going to do at the expense, it turns out, of other things, right? Like looking after new employees. Somebody new comes in, in your old office, you probably looked after those people, invited them to lunch. If they looked like they didn't know what they were doing, you'd help them out, or they would come to your desk. All that's gone, right? And there are a lot of studies now looking at productivity issues, individual productivity. The problem is individual productivity is not necessarily what we care. As an organization, you don't care if everybody's individual productivity is up, but the organization is struggling, right? And on everything collaborative, things are worse if you don't have people face to face. And we've known this forever, right? That lots about how work gets done because you know people. You can just stop by their desk. You can walk down the hall and get an answer to this question. And what happens now, which I'm living with IT, right? You send a request in, goes into a queue. They may get back to you tomorrow. So if I say I'm on this podcast with David and my link has gone down, I get a response back maybe tomorrow saying, "How's your link?"
Well, the technology's gotten better, though.
Yeah, but let me ask you this: how long has it been since you've been on a Zoom call where you discover that people's mute is still on? Right?
Oh, all the time.
All the time, right? So
yeah, but that's why I created this.
We have a mug.
You have a mug. You're on mute. Yeah, there you go. Right? So
that solves that. Very low tech, high tech problem.
Yeah. I'm not sure how much better it is, to be honest. Right? I mean, audio is better, that sort of stuff. But the idea that it's better. And here's my other, and then I'll stop ranting and let Ranya talk. I always have to make sure that I stop myself because I'll just rattle.
No, we have that all the time. Yeah,
it is. We're spending more time in meetings, and the meetings are virtual, and the norm seems to be cameras off, and the meetings are a complete waste of time. Right? When you've got cameras off,
right?
Nobody's paying attention now, and you probably know this, that now people are sending their agents to the meeting. They don't even show up. Their camera's off. The agent is there just taking notes. So you got 100 people on the call. Nobody's listening. They're just taking notes, and nothing gets done. Right? So those are the problems, right?
It's almost as if the question is a little bit different. Is work getting done, or is it getting done well? And I think that there's a big difference there that probably comes into play with this.
Yeah, and what work is getting done?
Is it the KPI that's the problem, though? Are we asking them to do the right things? Which is it, if the work is getting done and they're achieving their KPI, Dwight, is the KPI the wrong thing? Have we stopped giving people, like, Peter, we could solve this, and Ranya, maybe you can answer this. Have we stopped giving people the goal that's appropriate of how do we get to work better, or the competency of working better together? And should we change the motivation, which is change the goal system to be able to achieve that?
I mean, I think here we have to differentiate between the roles. If you're an individual contributor or if you're a manager, and if you've got managerial responsibilities. If you're an individual contributor, then yes, you have KPIs that are very, kind of, I wouldn't say strict, but, they're very transparent usually, if you're an individual contributor. Now, if you're a manager, yes, I think definitely this needs to be improved because you need to add in there, as Peter was saying, if you don't help you only do your work and you don't help with others, then you need to fix that. And you can fix that also in your KPIs, like, provide mentoring, especially to the younger employees, because they're the ones who suffer the most in this hybrid kind of environment. So you need to add more metrics then for managers to make sure that they are really taking all of these things into account.
But I think that the complication, though, is that even with better metrics, and for sure we should tell people to try to do those things as well. Most of those things we're talking about, like helping people who are new or helping people who are lost or answering people's questions, got done not because they were ever in your KPIs, but because you were humans with other people and you knew them, and the social norms caused you to do it, to answer people's questions. So when you take people out of that face-to-face environment where they don't have those opportunities and those incentives and pressures, and you try to formalize it, how does that work? So I've got somebody new in the office. If we're in the office, I can see they're looking around for something. I just say, hey, what can I help you? Looks like you're lost. Or they come to your desk and just say this. Okay, now we're remote. How's that work?
It does happen through Teams. I do get more junior staff asking me those questions through Teams.
Yeah. And one of the things we know is there's more communications within team now than there were before, and there's less outside the teams, right? So if you say you got 4 people there and you're on Teams all the time, they can ask you questions when things come up, but then you're in meetings all the time too, right?
And that brings up the multitasking.
Yeah. Well, and then you end up, not paying attention to either one, right? Which is different than if somebody just walks around the corner and says, David, I'm sorry to bother you. And you can kind of tell, if you get good at this, when you can bother somebody and when you can't, rather than send them a ping and wait for them to respond. They might not, they might be busy. And, people also, when they're remote, can post the I'm not available thing for a long period of time, right? And conflicts, if you have disagreements, I'm just involved in some email disagreements with some people right now. If you're face-to-face, they don't get nasty, right?
Well, I don't know, Ranya, you could tell us since you've been a generalist.
They don't get as nasty.
I was a CHRO, and I can tell you they were nasty.
they don't get as nasty as they are if you don't see each other, right? Where you're writing emails and you're responding back and forth, and there's a delay, and things just escalate. And if you walk around the corner and you just see the person, or you're going to see them, it is people are just more polite. They just deal with problems more easily. So I think the punchline of our book is really that, the idea of in praise of the office is really in praise of human interaction, right?
Sure.
That if you know each other and you see each other and relationships develop generally with most people, you figure out we've got to get along with each other, or you naturally do. And you have friends at work too. One of the things that struck us is that we just did not see evidence that people were making friends with people that they only dealt with online. You may be nice to them when you see them online, but one of the questions we ask is, have you made a friend with somebody that you only met through online work? And the answer was 0. So here's our survey. Here's our fact. We surveyed 760 people, and none said they had made a friend outside that they saw outside of work based on Zooming, right? So it's not that it's impossible, but 0 for 760. That's not a good ratio, right?
No, that's not a good number. But I'll tell you that Dwight and I met online, and I hired him online, and he and I didn't get to meet for probably 8 months, a year?
Yeah. Yep. About that amount.
We met when we got acquired by salary.com. And went to a conference and met, and we had been doing the podcast together. And now he and I are best friends, but we had our complete start of our friendship was totally online. So I'm not going to say we're 783 on your observations, but or your sample.
But sorry, David, here I think also the difference is, again, if you were in an organization before where you were all in person, right? So everything is based on being in person. And then from one day to the next, you were told to go work from home. And a lot of the policies, they stayed the same, as if they were built for the office, right? So the thing is, it's different when you have employees joining in that environment where people already know each other because they have a shared history of being together, rather than people who are fully remote and then continue to be remote. Mm-hmm.
I spent time in the UK and I made a lot of friends. Everybody who was in my office in the UK, we were all friends. We all went out to dinner after work or went for drinks or whatever. And the spouses came and the kids came and we were a big family. Had I had that experience in 2023 or 24, I probably would not have become such close friends with everybody because they would have told me to stay working in the US instead of joining the London office. But that being said, technology has moved on, time has moved on, and to your point, the policies have just not evolved. So I guess the question is, do policies need to change in order to be able to wrap our heads around or wrap our activities around the new world of work?
Well, I think as we, there is, as economists would say, some endogeneity here, and that is, are you taking the new world of work for granted and the technology and work from home policies has to adapt to that? Or are work from home policies the new world, right? So which is it? I mean, our book is mainly about if you want to be hybrid and you want to have some of the benefits of both, and the benefits of both, what we're talking about here, really, the benefits of remote work are almost completely for the employee side. And they're big, and that's important. So if you wanted to have some of those benefits and you wanted to retain some of the benefits of being in the office, how could you do that? And that's what Ranya's talking about, right? Is that you have to manage this purposefully. So the big problem is that employers, for the most part, are treating hybrid as if people are still in the office full time. They're just assuming people meet each other and they know each other. They're just assuming new hires get onboarded and they kind of know they're lost, but they're not doing much of anything about it. They're assuming that meetings are kind of functional, even though they know, looking at the hours, that the hours of meetings have gone up and everybody complains about meetings. So it's a management failure. The book is mainly about what could you do if you wanted to do this right. And lots of things you could do. We could probably spell them out here. You probably have a sense of what they are already, right?
I mean, also maybe, David, just to go back to your point about policies, it's not so much about changing policies, because policies, it depends also on the type of organization, but that can be also very bureaucratic to change policies, and it takes a long time to get them approved. But it's really about also the awareness, or maybe putting some guidelines in place.
Right.
I give you an example maybe about promotions and career development, because that's one of the things that we also saw sometimes in a hybrid environment leads to, some deep inequities because of also proximity bias, right? So those who are in the office, sometimes they're more visible to their managers rather than the ones outside. So when it comes to performance appraisal time, guess who the boss thinks of when they think about promotions or career development opportunities, right? So again, this is not something that you will put in a policy, but it is something that managers need to be aware of. They need the proper training for it. Maybe there's even, metrics to actually monitor also, managers and who they're promoting and things. So there's a lot of things that can be done, which are not necessarily policy related.
I think part of this too, which is a broader problem with U.S. management, I don't know to what extent it extends around the world, is devolving decision-making down to the lowest level, the supervisory level. And, that always sounds like a smart thing to do. It's also a way of people above can be less work for them. But what it means is that enforcement is all left to the immediate supervisor, right? And so we have anchor days, and let's say our anchor days are Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. But I say to Dwight, who's my supervisor, Dwight, I know I'm supposed to be in here on Tuesday, but my kids have this play date on Tuesday, and it's long-standing, and it's really hard for me to do. How about if I come in on Monday? And Dwight's looking at me, and I'm going, please, like this, and okay. And then somebody comes back to Dwight the next day and say, Dwight, David's team, they don't really care when you're in. Why are we doing this? And then all the pressure is on the local manager, and they cave.
Right.
And so then, why is it that in these organizations that have anchor days, nobody shows up on anchor days? At the top, they're sort of still saying we have a policy. I think, Jamie Dimon's, you might say, overreaction to this, I think came from the realization that he wasn't paying attention to this, that in fact, nobody was there, right? I mean, he says he walked around on the anchor days and nobody was there. And they're just really surprised by this. They shouldn't be surprised, right? I mean, they should know. And it's not that hard to find out. But, the company has to not just have the policies in place, but the people at the top have to make it clear that they're going to enforce these things. It really matters. And it's not just about being in the office. It's okay. When we're in the office, we ought to be doing office things. There's a reason you have to be here. And so we want to try to schedule more of our meetings on those days. But then supervisors say, yeah, but I really need to do this meeting on Friday. And, you get all these exceptions and then you got nothing, right?
I worked in offices for my first 20 years of life, 20 years of work. There were lots of people not doing office stuff. They were calling their kids. They were taking care of whatever they needed to take care of. They were doing their bills. They were, shooting the crap at the water cooler. They did a lot of things. They went out shopping. I used to work in New York City. People would go out shopping during lunch hours, which became lunch days. And so a lot of things happened at the office, like office pools and things like that really had nothing to do with the office. But you're right. We all acted as a team. We all were involved in it, but there was lots of distractions. So one of the things I find interesting about all this conversation about being back in the office is that I remember the days when nothing got done at the office, and I get so much more work done when I'm not distracted at home. But I think to Ranya, you made this point before, it has a lot to do with what the job is. An individual contributor, especially a senior individual contributor, who needs to spend a lot of time thinking, probably is best off not being in a distracted office, but someone who's at a lower level who requires a lot of interaction with other people definitely does.
It depends what you got going on at home. So I did some of these focus groups, for example, in India, where you had multi-generational families in the same house. They weren't getting anything done at home because they were constantly distracted, right? So part of the problem here is it creates another level of inequity. Depending on what your opportunities are at home, this could be really good for you or really bad for you. And frankly, the more money you've got, the more able you are to have a home office that is set up for you to work well. And the less, then, the more difficult it is. So it's not that there's less distraction at home. Depends entirely on what you're doing and what your home life is like.
Engagement, though, right? That's part of the rules of engagement, and being able to have the appropriate setup, whether it's ergonomically or distraction-wise.
Yeah. So what if you can't do that?
Well, then you can't work at home.
Yeah. Well, then,
The other piece of this, kind of peeling back another layer of the onion, is also the hours that people work when they're remote versus not. Where when you're going into an office, you kind of have hard deadlines in terms of I need to get on the interstate because I'm going to have bumper to bumper traffic. Whereas it's so much easier, and I do this a lot, where at 7, 8 o'clock at night, I'm looking at my watch saying, I've got a couple other things that I can get done. And so I'm logging back in.
Yep.
And
so that's another layer of the onion that goes with it.
And Dwight, that's really also the irony, because obviously, people love also working from home because it's like it's better work-life balance. Well, it is, but only if you also know how to create the boundaries for it. Because if you don't, then, you're working well into the night every night. There is very high levels, also what we've written in the book, of loneliness when you work from home. And that's a very big social isolation is a very big problem, because if you do not have a lot of people around you, or if you don't have a family, you don't live with a family, or you don't have a lot of friends, then you rely maybe on your interaction with the colleagues in the office, to bring you that kind of social element. When you don't have that at home, then I think this can really, this can go wrong very quickly.
Yeah, that's why Dwight and I have each other, by the way.
Yes, right.
He has his dogs, I have mine. We're best friends. We talk all the time.
That's wonderful.
It does raise
Seriously, it's true.
an interesting question, which doesn't get discussed much, and that is this issue of inequality. It benefits different people, right? And unfortunately, well, I don't know if unfortunate or not, but younger people, this has more cost for, right? You're trying to figure out how work operates. You're trying to maybe socialize more. It's a bigger part of your life when you're just getting started, and you want people around you. If, for example, you got a new job, you're a new MBA graduate, and it's in Manhattan, and you say, this is great, and they tell you, good news, you'll be working from home. It means you get to live in a tiny little closet-sized apartment. You're going to be working out of your apartment and not meeting anybody.
Right.
This sounds terrible, right? So, we haven't thought much about these inequalities. So, Ranya and I have seen each other in person exactly twice, right? We were remote, and we work remotely.
Although we did meet for the first time in person. So unlike David and
Yes,
Dwight,
we did meet
we
in
met
person.
the first time
Yes.
in person.
That's great.
Yep, thank you.
Yeah, well, you established the relationship
Thank
there.
you.
That
There
was
you go.
wonderful.
Yep. Thank you. That's right. For us, in our regular day jobs too, we know how the places work. We know how offices operate generally. We know who to call. It's easiest for us to be remote than anybody, right? The problem is for junior people, we are exactly the people who should be there to help them figure out what's going on. Particularly in university, this is true, right? And we have a kind of hybrid arrangement, and I can tell you nobody shows up. The place is empty. And it is worse for, the younger you are, the PhD students in particular, the worse it is for them, right? So, there are winners and losers in this thing. There are winners and losers for the organization. The employees, I think, in general, most all of them benefit from having remote arrangements. I'd say the workplace, unless you spend a lot of time managing it differently, which employers are not, it's worse for the organization. Right. So how are we going to balance these things? And I think, mainly I hope what our book is about is just pushing them. We got to think about these things. It's just not going to happen. And so far what's occurred is employers are just treating it as if it's no different, It's sort of just like you were in the office, but now you're only here 2 days a week, right?
But to kind of go back on this has been 5 years that we've been dealing with this. And to that point you just made, it's too late now to basically just go back to the beginning and fix it. So there have to be things they can do. Like, Ranya, you were talking about rules of engagement and things like that. There've got to be things that can be done to not only create the environment for collaboration, but also encouragement of the scarce resources that might be remote, plus the key interactions that need to happen. There needs to be something that brings them back together and makes it better for everybody. And I'm not just talking about bringing everybody back into the office. So are there any, I guess the question is there anything that we can do moving forward to make this work better, unintended?
Well, I think there's a lot of things that we can do, starting with the most basic. I mean, as Peter already mentioned, the first thing is really to fix the meeting culture, to really think about who needs to attend what, how. If your camera is off, please don't attend a meeting. You have to set the clear rules of engagement so that everybody understands and expectations. So I would say that is an easy fix and can be done even at a local departmental level. Then you need to design days with purpose and not presence. So as we said, don't make people commute in to sit by themselves. Bring them in for something, for team meetings, for gatherings, for innovation sprints, for mentoring.
Yeah.
So really make it worth their while. That's why a lot of organizations also, they create, moments that matter to really make employees want to come into the office for a reason. So definitely, you also need to train the managers, make sure managers really know how to manage hybrid teams to make sure that everybody's included and to make it a very inclusive environment, because I think most managers never got that training. So these are just really maybe just a few things.
Absolutely.
I think there's one more set is to actively rebuild or create for the first time social relationships. When people are hired, and you need to onboard them. We don't take onboarding very seriously. And one of the reasons is we just assume people learned as they went along, but there aren't people there to...
Osmosis.
Yeah.
Right.
And watch and listen. And, you can't learn an organization culture by reading memos. You have to kind of see it. So could we onboard people more purposefully? Could we keep them together so at least they got each other for a while, right? Can we have events that bring people together with other teams so that they have to meet each other? And I'm not talking about social meetings, because those, you tend to hang with your own team at the cocktail hour. So, you got some lunches where you got assigned seats and you just say, that our team, your team, we interact, we want you to sit together and here's the question we want you to talk about for a bit. And that, we could do things like that. It's not that hard, but somebody's got to be willing to do it. I think part of the problem in the US is that we have squeezed management so hard. I know you're both aware of the most recent round of layoffs, which have increased staffing ratios, spans of control. Supervisors have even more people to supervise. It's hard to do this informally without actually creating some mechanisms to make people interact and without giving the supervisors more support, which means don't just leave it to them to get people to show up, So, the book is mainly about what could you do? And we think you got to do it. It is part of a bigger problem, I think, in the U.S. I'm not sure, Ranya, what you're seeing elsewhere, but that we're just not taking management seriously enough overall, not just in this context, right?
Right. I think what we'll do is ask people to read the book. Buy your book.
Yeah, buy
read
it.
The book.
Buy it first.
Yeah, buy the book.
Idea.
Don't just pass it around.
Yes. And by the way, just to disclose, we do not get a percentage of that purchase. So it all goes to Ranya and Peter. But buy the book and also just pay attention to it because, as they said, it was in the Wall Street Journal this week. And you're going to hear a lot more about it. It's not going away. As Peter said, with the Verizon layoff and other layoffs happening, this is going to be amplified as being a problem. Just like AI is blamed or is being blamed for layoffs, return to work will be blamed for layoffs for the future as well. But we're going to have you back to talk a little bit more about this and other things too, if you don't mind.
My pleasure.
Looking forward.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Our pleasure.
Yes.
Dwight, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both for being here. And the next episode we will do in Vienna.
Looking forward, definitely.
Yes, we definitely have to do that. Although I might have to dial in remotely. Sorry.
Yes.
Sorry, I had to say it.
Yeah, you got to have camera on though.
You
Yes,
can, but
I
it wouldn't have
certainly
the same impact.
I know.
Exactly.
Maybe we'll ask the corporation if they'll sponsor that.
Yeah.
But thank you all for listening. Take care and stay safe. Thank you for listening to the HR Data Labs podcast. Don't forget to hit subscribe and share it with your network. Also, check out the HR Data Labs Brown Bag Lunch every Friday on LinkedIn. You can also check out the recordings on Spotify. Thank you, take care, and stay safe.